Welcome to Think Big with Michael Zellner, sponsored by Sleepy Z's Masonry. My guest today for episode 176 are two people who have worked together in television starting in the early 1980s on the NBC soap opera Days of Our Lives. More importantly than that, they are also the best of friends. I'm happy to welcome back to the podcast for the fourth time, Thaao Penghlis, and joining us for the first time today is the beautiful, wonderful, and talented actress, Leann Hunley. Thank you guys so much for coming on today.
Thank you. I was going to say, my response to that was, oh, she's so lucky.
My response is,
I'll smack him down.
I'll smack him down.
Persevered.
I have. I've survived.
Just served a long time, yes.
Yes.
For those that might not have listened to or watched the podcast that I did with Thaao yet, he's not only a very famous television and soap opera actor, he's also a writer, he's an author, and he's also a podcast host too. He's been on several television shows throughout his career, with his big break coming in 1981, playing the character Victor Cassadine on the soap opera General Hospital. He's also was a star on the network television show Mission Impossible in the late 80s. Of course, though, he is best known for his dual character roles of brothers Tony and Andre DiMera on Days of Our Lives. Cousins? Okay. Cousin. Yeah. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. He's appeared on the show on and off now for 5 decades and has won several awards in his career, including twice for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series. Leann is also a very famous television and soap opera actress, and her start came in 1977 on the show Hawaii Five-0. And throughout her career, she's appeared on many network television shows, including one I just saw again the other day, a repeat on the show Matlock. In 1990, it was the episode was called The Talk Show. And I believe that you were the killer on that show, if I remember correctly.
Turned out.
Yes. You were the killer.
My character's name was Leann.
Yeah, exactly right. And like Thaao, she's probably best known for her character Anna DiMera on Days of Our Lives, which she played starting in 1982. And just 4 years into her career on the show, Leann won an Emmy Award at the 13th Annual Daytime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Drama Series. She's also starred in the hit television drama series Dynasty for 3 seasons, which I was a big fan of that. She was, I guess, part of the infamous Carrington family. And she's had major roles also on the show Dawson's Creek and Gilmore Girls too. You know, you guys have both had such amazing careers all over television, and from a fan standpoint, have enjoyed watching both of you, and have always been entertained by your characters on the shows and your hard work. So, first of all, I want to say thank you for that.
You also did Dawson's.
Yeah, he mentioned.
Oh, you mentioned Dawson's Creek.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm really going. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I love that show.
Thanks for the credit, honey.
Dynasty was a great show.
Yeah. It was intimidating, a bit daunting to join that very established cast, and because it was so worldwide, it was kind of amazing. But I was coming right off my run on Days, and I felt very, very comfortable. And because daytime soap opera filming is so quick, and we do it so much, it was like joining a show. To be able to do a show in 6 to 8 days with all these scenes spread out over all of this time was just amazing. Mm-hmm. I was on it because I was so used to my training on Days. But it was great fun. Joan Collins was my mother-in-law, and right. Gordon Thompson was my husband, and I made good friends there, and I was so happy to it was kind of being a part of history at the time. Yeah.
Also, I remember when you worked outside of daytime, they would say, "Where did you get your training from?" Because we did it in one take for them.
Right.
We knew how to direct ourselves I knew when to get up from a desk and go to a window, and the director, which you find out that the camera has to follow you. So then the director comes to me and says, "Where'd you get your training from?" So daytime really provided us, I think, to be able to go outside of that successful realm and play it with efficiency. And they like that, Directors especially, that don't have to, especially when they don't have to direct you, that you know what you're doing. They feel they're in good hands.
Yeah, and back in those times in the, I guess, late 70s when Dallas first started, and then Dynasty, those are the two big nighttime soap operas that I remember the most. It was completely, different back then, compared to now with the shows. If you got killed back then, it wasn't like a gory killing, like a lot of times you wouldn't even see it. You wouldn't see somebody bleeding. And now today, I mean, you see every single little bitty detail. And
I think of poor Andre and all his deaths being eaten by a lion, tiger. They loved all that, when the blood came pouring down on me and during the circus, and I slipped on my ass. But that was never shown. But yeah, they seem to love that today.
Right.
Well, people love all gory stuff these days. There's no what do you call it?
Mystery.
Yeah, it's just right there. Where Hitchcock,
right?
That's what I liked about Hitchcock was your imagination. So
it was so much bigger.
Yeah, and the shower scene. You never saw it. You just saw shadows of it. And her response to it. I mean, it was so incredible, but there's, different filmmakers, bringing different ideas.
When you guys
spelling, and spelling did have a little glow about it, and it did have a wholesomeness about it.
Right.
I mean, Dallas wasn't, but Dynasty was. So I think that there was something to be said for the fact that he kind of created an empire of wholesomeness. If you can say it at that point. I mean, it was touching the edges of some reality, and they brought in storylines that were unique. My character couldn't have a baby, and so I had a surrogate mother provide a child. That was really huge. There was a story in real life happening at that time, Baby Whitehead, and so it was. The writers were following the news to see what was happening, so they were bringing that into the show as it was happening live in real life. But it was very much the way, what is it, Dick Wolf does all of those
police shows.
Law and Order.
Law and Order, and they're all ripped from the headlines. So it's kind of more of using reality. And
you were on an episode of one of those too, weren't you?
I was, and that was a great experience. I remember going to New York to stay, and they took me to a studio in New Jersey to film, and I had never been to New Jersey, so I'd only ever heard about all these names. And I remember being in the van on the way to the stage, to the studio, and I'm going back past signs that say Hoboken and Secaucus and all these places that I was like, I'm really here now. I didn't know New York. I'm a West Coast girl. I'm from the Northwest. So for me, it was very exciting, and everybody was lovely there. And I love that show. So for me, it was a great treat.
Is it Forks, Washington that you're from?
Yes, Forks, like the fork in the rivers. It's what it was kind of named after, I think. Kind of made famous now because that's where the vampires live, apparently. From Twilight, the movie series of Twilight.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That's my hometown.
Oh, wow.
And the writers based the show in that town because it is overcast most days of the year, and vampires can walk around during the day when there's no sunshine getting through. Right. So it's the rainforest. It rains 140 inches a year there. That's why I still love my rain. I can't wait for it to rain. I love to run outside in it and do a rain dance.
I hate rain.
I know. So
I don't mind it to clear the air and everything.
Right.
But, I grew up in Australia where it was always sunny, and
I love my rain.
Isn't it nice that we're a contrast?
Yeah,
They'll get along.
yeah,
Well,
Op-
kind of.
sort of.
What was John Forsythe like?
Oh, he was a lovely gentleman, lovely gentleman. The one thing I do remember was when I first got there, I timidly walked up to him, and I think he was in the makeup chair or something, and I said, "Would you like to run some lines with me?" And he said, "Oh, no, no, we'll do it on stage." And I went, "Okay," because I was used to having a little rehearsal. This was a whole new set of things. They were so professional. He'd been doing it so long. He knew what he was going to do.
Right.
Didn't have to run lines. I was a little bit more. I just needed a little bit more preparation, but he was lovely, lovely gentleman.
You know, and remember as a little kid watching Charlie's Angels and him being the voice, and you know, I didn't know who he was at the time, you know, being a little kid. And then when you realize, I did not know until Dynasty came out, because his voice obviously very distinguishable. I was
Yes,
like, oh my gosh, that's who was, you know, Charlie.
Charlie.
Yeah, that was
Yes,
Charlie, because you never end up seeing him on the show.
yes, and because he had their series before, he had series Black and what was it? He wasn't Father Knows Best, but he had Life with Father. He had a series back in the day, in a black and white series, and just he was always a gentleman, and that's what I actually appreciate about Thaao, is he's a gentleman to this day. He will carry my bag in. He will pay for my dinner. He will open a door. He's a gentleman, truly.
That's very nice. You know, when you talk about little things like opening doors, like today, I mean, people today, I'm not saying people don't do it, but it's not as even opening a door for someone to get in a car, saying please and thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, when you open the door for somebody, they just walk through like you were necessary.
Like you were there.
Yeah.
And they don't even say, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Those types of things have disappeared. So I think we have to remind people.
Yeah.
I personally, if I get on an elevator and a man holds the door and waits for me to go out, I tell them, I appreciate a gentleman. I'm blessing you and all your children and grandchildren. They need to know that we appreciate. I'm a woman who does appreciate that. Yeah. I know a lot of women want to stand on their own. I like to have a little help, and I like to be appreciated as a woman as well. So.
Well, I think it's important that you understand who the person is that you're associating with. And just the way she and I have worked together, even though at first she wasn't crazy with the idea, but it's fine. There was nowhere else except to go up. So when she would ask why when they said they're going to have me with her, and she said why.
Why?
Part of what has brought us together is that there was an element of surprise for her. Do you know what I mean? And also, I do have a tendency to speak my mind, which sometimes would get me into trouble. I'm a little better about that, even though I have learned about perseverance in some matters. But, now that we're back on days working, it's a whole different element. It's really fast, but you've got to eat your tongue, basically. I mean, it's just unbelievable how we work now.
I'm so grateful.
It's like you throw all the ingredients and hope for the best in a soup, and you hope it's going to taste well. So that's how it is. It's fast and furious. I mean, there's no time to say, could I have some light? Or can we move that light? There's none of that. You just go in, you say, the director, if he talks to you, will say to you, move here. That's it. And that's what we're dealing with. So you've got to fill in the gaps that before were explained, or you had a sense of why you made that move. Now, basically, because they're in there and we're doing 68 scenes today. I mean, that's why when people see the result of a show, you have no idea, because we're the ones who finally represent everybody.
Right.
I mean, it's the actor who brings in the writers, the sound, everything to present a final picture. And sometimes it's not always there. And so, but, our dance together is because we've had that, we understand each other's rhythm. So when we worked together yesterday, one of the things they said was, oh, it's so refreshing. And that's because the way we connect, and when she touches me or when her eyes beam, it's because something real is going on. And that's because of all the history of what has brought us together so far. And sometimes the writers have to catch up, or, you know, we're still a bit in the past, and you
Right.
want to bring another new element about where these people have been since they disappeared 2 years ago.
Right. When you guys are given a script, is there every little thing on there that you're supposed to do? Like, does it say stand up here or walk over here or make this eye movement or mouth movement? Or is a lot of it just, you just know you're supposed to do it from?
Sometimes that's written in because that is, I think, the writer envisioning the way the scene will play out, and as they're writing it, they're visualizing you in 3D, or you know, to make sure that you're playing the scene the way you want it. So yeah, I mean, but do we always heed that? I try to, because I think the writers work very hard to write the scenes. I
Right.
want to respect what they've done, and so I try my best to get as close as I can to what it is they've asked me for.
Well,
Right.
also, it's necessary to go beyond the page, where you surprise them by something they gave you to do,
Right.
by the way you expressed it, and the passion behind it that drives the character. And I think that's always something you have to give them a surprise and an unexpectation of, oh my God, I didn't realize that that's what, so that you take them on another. So the actor's responsible not only to tell you what's on the page, but to go beyond the page. It's like the children who go beyond their parents. You want to see things gradually, so that right when they go, or he goes, she goes home, and they look at what they just witnessed, they say, oh, we can add that to it because this is what they did. So you have to be part of it's teamwork. And then because we don't get any direction anymore unless it's really necessary. But thank God, you know, training, having gone to classes, going beyond the show and exploring other parts of the world, reading, you know, dealing with family issues, and then coming back, something touched you deeply. And so therefore, sometimes it's parallels, you know, it's uncanny. And you look at those dialogue, but you've got all that passion that you haven't released yet. So the great thing is acting allows you the outlet to put that emotion into the dialogue.
Are cell phones banned on sets? Hopefully, maybe.
Yeah, we don't have anything
Yeah.
like that.
You know, because, you know, in schools today, obviously, you know, there's some teachers allow kids to have them in schools and in classrooms and things like that. Smartphones, which in my opinion, I don't think it's a great idea. I mean, I look at one aspect of it in case of an emergency. Yes. But, you know, we grew up without cell phones. You know, I remember the first car phone I ever had. I think my first car phone bill that I had was more expensive than the car. And it was like $700. I had an old Chevy Impala, and my dad, like, after 1 month, took it out. He goes, no. But I was hoping that, that, you know, on television, that they would not, you know, people wouldn't sit there, because you go to restaurants today and there could be 4 people sitting at a table that are family, and they're not even talking. They're just texting on their phone. So I was like hoping, I hope they don't allow you guys to have that, or you choose not to have that on set.
No, we don't. Everybody really has to be, you have to be on point. You have to be present. You have to be
professional
and working with your other actor. You want them, you know, you want to connect with them.
Yeah.
And that does distract you. I mean, that will distract you. And certainly any ding ding in the middle of a scene, it won't make the powers that be very happy.
Absolutely.
What gets me in restaurants, you know, when there are children there and the parents are looking at their phones, the children are looking at their phones, and then you wonder why we're in the problem we're having
nobody's
today.
talking to
Because
each other.
nobody's talking to each other. They don't know how to address you. They don't know what we were brought up, that there are decades in which you learn about respect, for those who have come before you and those who know more. Now it's about, you know how teenagers can get, young kids can get, they think they know more than you do.
Right.
They just are so obstinate about things. And, as actors, we have had to learn about life because that's what we're dealing with. That's what we exchange with each other. And so, to me, it's, yesterday we both fashion, you know what I mean? That we have to dress up a certain way because of who we are. But we also enjoy it,
Right.
And there was a great storyline in the past of Leann being involved in fashion. And that brought a lot of humor with John Delancey and Calliope. I mean, that was always, that was a beautiful time. That was
It
kind
was
of
a
a
lovely
golden
time,
age,
yes.
Calliope, I forgot all about her. I could still picture her from the 80s back then. Yeah.
Pauline, yes, we miss her.
Yeah,
We miss her.
she was wonderful.
Yeah, she was a good friend. And
Before we start talking about, Tony and Andre and Anna, I first wanted to give you guys my deepest sympathy for the loss of Drake Hogestyn, who played both the characters of people forget Roman Brady,
he's
and
my husband. Yeah,
right,
for a
as you
while.
right, and John Black, most of the time on
Yeah.
Days of Our Lives. Tell us, if you would, just a little bit about him and what he meant to you, both personally and professionally.
Well, it's funny. I was telling Thaao about this because in the last few times that I worked with John or with Drake, he told me twice the same story, and it's something I didn't remember at the time, but he wanted me to remember it, I think, because he told me a second time. And it was that he worked with me on his first day when he started the show, and that he had, in those days, we came in and we were there at 6 a.m. or 6:30 in the morning, and we had a dry block rehearsal and a camera rehearsal and a third rehearsal, and then you'd go to lunch and you'd get back for dress rehearsal. So all morning long, I worked with him and we rehearsed our scenes. And then after lunch, I got myself all together. Anna came on, and I walked on stage, and he stood up and said, "Hi, I'm Drake." And I said, "Yeah, I've been working with you all morning." He did not recognize me from
Oh, wow.
my personal Leann
Right.
to with all of the glam on. And I thought it was kind of interesting. There's soap opera for you because I had
Right.
even bigger hair then.
I guess sometimes I have to find a box to stand on because the hair, when I'm standing behind her, I think move the curtain. It's like a curtain. Like, how do I
Yes.
to get through it? But Drake,
Drake was loved.
yeah. See, he was an adversary with me.
Right.
It was never on a real friendly basis between us. I mean, that showed. So that when we went on set, it was already established. And I mean, he was a great talker. He loved to tell stories. You'd say, "Drake, how are you?" And then Drake would tell you for the next half hour a big story.
Yeah.
But he had great heart.
He was kind.
Yeah. He was well mannered. He was very respectful.
He never said a bad word about anyone.
No,
Yeah.
I
Wow.
did, but he did.
Yeah.
No, and so, I remember we went to Australia together with Deidre, the three of us, with Ken Corday, and he just was the first time he'd been to Australia. So I showed him a bit of Sydney, and we had a fantastic time. So we really got to know each other on a different basis, a more friendly basis. But then we came back, and of course, when I fenced him, he took it really seriously. I mean, I remember how he nicked me, and I thought he did it purposely, but it was not, because, I don't see very well out of this eye. And so it was very hard for me to do the fencing when he's on that side. But we would train and train and train. And, the memories with him have been, very professional, kind, and also embraceful, you know.
Mhm.
And I remember those days, the early days, where he'd come in at 4:30 in the morning, and he would have certain drinks he would be doing to keep slim. He would be working out. He'd come in, and he was a force, you know.
Almonds, eating almonds to keep
Yeah,
his energy going.
and then he
Yes.
leaves before us.
Yeah, just wow.
You just don't know
You just
when
don't
it's
know.
your time.
Right.
That's why, you know, as we've gotten older, and I'm up there now, and I think, oh, what have I got time to do now? You know, I love the journeys I take, and I still want to do them. I said to Leann, I would love to take her to Greece,
Oh,
show her Greece.
nice.
Yeah,
Actually, I'd love to show her Egypt.
I'd like that too.
Yeah,
If we don't have to do too much sand.
no, 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 no. I'm not going to take you in the wilderness, but yeah, there's things to still do, and
Yes.
that's what keeps you, your curiosity, you know,
Mhm.
and what you exchange with each other, so that, you know, we have dinners every week usually, and we go out with Lauren Coslow and her husband, and you know, we have a lot to talk about, you know, even our politics, even though they are different, and we have a couple of arguments here and there. It's professional.
But that's life. Aren't we supposed
Yeah.
to all be able
Yeah.
to just have a discourse about everything? You know,
She's a little more passionate sometimes than I am.
not necessarily.
But, you know, there's things to look forward to.
Hmm.
You know, when people say they're bored, you know, I said, no, you're boring. It's the other way around, you know. And
Right.
I mean, I took a friend from Greece to London to see on New Year's Eve, Les Mis, right? And they fell asleep. And I went, how do you fall asleep in one of the greatest musicals ever? And I just realized not everybody's got it.
Right.
You know, we're all different. We all come in different ways in the way we're brought up. But what gives us curiosity and what makes us interested beyond ourselves?
But not everybody can do the same thing either. And some of us are better at one thing than another. So, but he took me to Les Mis here when it came here to the Pantages last year, and it was all we could do, not to sing along with all of the
Right.
people, because
You know,
we
that's
know it.
part of
Oh
the-
man, it was fabulous.
Fabulous. You know.
I remember going to the first time I went on Broadway in 2005. I was dating a girl and we went up there and saw 3 different shows. I know one of them was Wicked, which was amazing. And there was a couple other ones. John Lithgow was the star. Oh, I forget, he was in that. And there's a couple other shows I saw. I forget the names of them right now, but they were amazing. And I loved Broadway, and I understand it's not the same anymore.
Well,
Yeah.
we need that's the thing. We need joy. They need inspirational things. As you know, I think that's the same. That's true of all the entertainment out there now. It's dark. It's evil. I mean, it's all about being afraid of things and satanic things. I don't know. To me, I think we need joy. I think we need.
Well, the trouble is we keep
That's why
repeating.
refreshing is a big word for us.
Yeah.
You know.
You keep, but they keep redoing the same thing. You know, the revivals all the time. Now, some of them are really worth reviving. You know,
Sure.
especially the Sondheim, Hammerstein musicals and all that are just wonderful because you remember those melodies. But movies, you know, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and I mean, after a while, you're just going, you know. So we're not being creative.
Right.
We're not putting our hands and our thoughts into things that we haven't yet discovered.
Yes.
So they feel safe because it's about money. They
Right.
feel safe because those productions had made a lot of money. So let's do another, like they did with the what was it? The clown, the movie they just did with the Joker.
Right.
You know, the first one did $1 billion, so they do a second one, and that flopped. You know, so they keep doing. So it's like you keep repeating. Certain writers keep repeating, bring show ideas from other shows instead of exploring. They don't do enough outside of themselves or read enough outside of their norms to bring in that, you know. So we're left with old material a lot.
Right.
So that's why I think in many ways, when we came on, we're survivors. The way Leann and I have, I mean, it manifests that way because she and I have survived this business. She 42 years, me 43 years. And because we never became the same all the time.
Right.
We always played with each other. We always had joy with each other. We're a real contrast. You know, that's another thing that works as far as how we connect.
Yes.
You know, but there is enough in the foundation, which is about the friendship, which is respect, which is liking who you are, even though sometimes, you know, you want to punch or you want to hit or you want it jokingly. But that's what we've got. And I think that's why it was interesting yesterday to have us for the first time on set together, because we've worked separately. And so I've got a storyline, she has her storyline, but we worked together. And so when we came on set, there was an applause.
Oh, awesome.
They loved. It was like, oh my God, you know, it's like they've been going through routine after routine. We weren't a routine, even though we have been there for many, many years. When we came back, we were still fresh.
Right.
You know?
You know, Leann, you talked about, you know, dark and satanic, and I agree with that. I mean, I remember growing up and like in primetime television, like the first 2 hours, you know, from like, you know, 8 to 10 o'clock Eastern time were like 4 sitcoms. And then you maybe would have at 9 o'clock your Dallas or your, you know, or 10 o'clock your Dallas or your Dynasty or something like that. That wasn't a, you know, a dark kind of thing. But now there are still sitcoms, but not near as many. Most of the stuff now are things like your Dateline NBCs and your all those kind of shows that, I mean, you know, that just it just makes people so negative. And then you see all this darkness, and it's like, how do you stay positive in such a negative world?
Exactly. And it is supernatural. Everything's supernatural. It's like, no, real life is real life. You have to really live through real life too. You can't spend. I personally just don't turn it on. I go to other places.
Right.
I go to other, you know, genres and different channels. I won't watch it because I'm not the audience, obviously, that they're after.
Yeah.
But it makes me sad that they would hook in young people into that's no wonder everybody's depressed.
Right.
I mean, think about
it's fear factors.
Yes, and what's going on in our country of people that are depressed all the time. And of course I always say I watch old people television, so I'm watching old game shows and old TV shows, and all the commercials there are about dying. You're going to die any day, so you need to take this medication and that medication, and it's just constantly battering a human soul with
We're
fear.
not well.
With fear.
We're not well, and you need help.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, so therefore it makes someone feel like, oh, they need that.
Yes.
Instead of, I think to myself, why don't you find out who you are, and then you'll know how to apply yourself to whatever comes, because we all have obstacles.
Sure.
I mean, that's part of the existence, isn't it? That we overcome those so that on the other side there's a light that we say, now I understand. Now I see it. There's a real revelation when you overcome an obstacle, and it was exhausting, but at the same time, there's a joy at the end of it. But what do we do? It's like taking pills to avoid the pain, or everything is to avoid. It's not, they don't say to you, you've come in with all the answers. It's a matter of you tapping into them. And so, you know, we are constantly being bombarded with all those drugs. I mean,
all these drugs.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. And you go to the doctor and he says, oh, your cholesterol is a little high. And well, why don't you take, I said, but what are the side effects? Well, you know, I said, well, then why would I do that? So you take one thing to create another.
problem.
And, and I remember when my mother had cancer and she was living, and she was so tired of the drugs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She was exhausted. And, it's all about money. That's the thing about we've come to in life is everything's about money.
Yes.
So we shortchange things just to make save an extra buck. Or
Right.
you get a younger, more inexperienced actor because you're a little more expensive, but we'd rather take that and settle for the mediocrity rather than being inspired. So you constantly settle. So when those circumstances arise in your life, you've got to take the initiative to find out what else is there for you, rather than settling to what they said, this is what it is. And you're going, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, I think there's an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
But people follow. The great thing about my spiritual counselor when I was 26 and I walked in and she said to me, how dare you come here with the mind you have and the trash you associate with? And I was like, what? Well, that changed everything. So I spent 12 years with this woman undoing all the stuff that was imposed on me so I could find out underneath all that who I was.
Right.
So that was hard work because you find out there are things, we're vulnerable. Our insecurities are our children.
Right.
And what they're there for is to nurture them and they become your assets. And that's what life is about. So when you see the arc, like I can now in my life, like Leann can see hers, it's about how well did you do it? Was it well done? With the choices you had, do you feel you missed out? And I can't say I have. Would I like more? Sure.
Right.
But wow, in a 1% bracket of having worked in this industry, I feel I've been privileged. I've been blessed. And so here we are, and we're still working at our craft. Why? Because we did our homework.
Absolutely. You're talking about the pharmaceuticals, like the commercials even have like the music in the background and, that lovely music, and then tell you all about the drug. And then, the side effects, this. I found out, unfortunately, in 2018, I got a clot in my leg. And then the next day I got 2 pulmonary embolisms in my lungs. And one was up against my heart. And I remember waking up, trying to walk into the kitchen and being out of breath. Well, I was stupid. I used to own a mattress store. I went to my mattress store, ignored it. And then I was there about an hour. Then I said, something's wrong. So I immediately, called my doctor, got in and found out I was in the ICU. They checked it, and the clot here, they were going to first blast it because they said, we're going to have to go in and blast it because if not, you could go right to your heart attack, stroke. And then they decided to treat it with this blood thinners. Thankfully, all went away. Well, I had no idea why I got the clot. A few years later, I was taking a drug called Zellner for rheumatoid arthritis. And they used to blast television with this commercial all the time. I'd see it all the time. And in 2021, I'm watching the commercial. And at the bottom of it, it says, for the first time ever, because it didn't say it before, may cause blood clots. So I called my doctor and he said that had to be it because we did all this different testing, genetics and everything. So I researched it and found out the drug had been out for like 9 years before they did phase 3 trials. So they allow all these drugs on the market that haven't been fully tested, knowing that there's going to be side effects. Mm-hmm. And my family being Jewish, my family would have not done an autopsy because it's not, unless it's something controversial like a murder or something in the Jewish religion, you don't do an autopsy. My mom would have thought I just died in my sleep of a heart attack or stroke and would not have known that I got blood clots. And I wouldn't have known until that happened. After 9 years, that drug being out in the market, that it could cause blood clots. And it was made by Pfizer. And I was the only one in my family, not that I'm anti-vax as I get my vaxes, but I was the only one in my family that didn't get the COVID shot because it was made by Pfizer. and I was scared because of the blood clots. And I tell you, it's not that I understand why people got it. I understand why people with jobs had to get it. Like I have a friend who's an actor who doesn't. He said, yeah, we had to get testing every week and all the different things on any sets he went on to do things. But that industry, they let drugs out into the market before they're fully tested all the way. And that scares me.
It's really scary. It's really scary.
Yeah.
And like you say, when you actually read the list of things that can go on with any one of these things, and every one of them at the end of it says, don't take it if you're going to take a live vaccine. I mean, they all interact. All
Yeah.
of those things interact. So it's very, I think everybody, it's like anything else. We have to do our own due diligence. You have to be your own advocate when you go to a doctor. Because if a doctor is seeing you for the first time, they're writing notes about you. They don't know your history. They're not, I don't know, they seem to be putting it in a computer now and letting the computer think for it instead of, I have an old school doctor. I love him because I'm terrified he will retire because he looks me in the eye and asks me what it is. And he can determine, because of his world experience and his long-term knowledge of what it could be instead of letting the computer do it for him. I'm a proponent of old school doctors. I like them.
Yeah. Having that bedside manner from a doctor means everything in the world. And my father was a podiatrist for 45 years and he had it. His patients loved him. Didn't matter age, race, religion. It didn't matter because they knew he was genuine and he cared about them. He spent time with them. And I once asked my dad, I said, we were upper middle income, but I said, Dad, why don't you do more surgeries? And he said, Michael, I can sleep at night. And I didn't understand. He said, there's a lot of doctors that push people into surgeries that really don't need them because that's where they make big money. He goes, I will never do that, ever. It's like I asked him, why don't you drive a nicer car? He goes, it gets me back and forth to work. I don't care what kind of car I have. And so it made me respect it. And it's why, I feel like I always say today to people that even when I go to a drive-through to pick up food and I see somebody's name tag, I call them by their name. And yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I don't care if they're half my age not because of anything else, but I think it's the right thing to do and treat people that way.
With respect.
Absolutely. Exactly. So I feel very blessed. My parents were married for 48 years before he passed. So I feel very blessed that I had that. Now I know that not everybody has that. So I know I was blessed.
Well, that was also old school.
Yeah.
My parents left together. So I think of how long they were married. God, 50 years. My sister, my older sister, married once. It's the only man she ever knew. And when he passed, I said to her one day, do you think you would marry again? She said, why do you think nobody's asked me? They got all these men now who are widows and they want to be taken care of. Get me this, get me that, because they've been used to that, a woman serving them. And she says, no, I did it. I want to be on my own and I enjoy it. So, we all go through our experiences and learn from them. The trouble is, sometimes, it takes forever.
Yeah.
And then you find out, about your situation and how you got those blood clots, but your observations were there to be able to witness and show you, heal yourself. But my God, there are so many people out there who don't know. I mean, the Lipitor and things like that people are taking, and it creates blood clots and your legs get weaker and everything. And I know someone in my family who's doing that. And I said, but you don't care about the after effects? She said, well, I'm used to it.
Right.
I'm used to it. Don't let me change. Because the doctor said, I said, you think the doctors? I said, I learned a long time ago when the doctor was shoving pills and telling me to take all these things. And instead of fighting him, I said, oh, okay. And then I threw them out.
Right.
I'd rather do the broths I'm doing the way I live. Leann does her
I do
situation,
my own. I do very, very holistic
Yeah.
Yes.
style of things. Vitamins. My mother raised me on vitamins, and when I was a little girl and we'd have sleepovers or something, whoever stayed over, they'd get a vitamin C in their spoon next to their breakfast, and they didn't know what it was. Nobody had ever heard of a vitamin before.
Yeah.
And so I was raised with all of vitamin C, especially from the beginning. That was the
Right.
big one. And then when I was like 15, my mom was growing wheatgrass in little pie tins with dirt and snipping it off and putting it in green juice that she juiced from when I was a teenager. So that's how far back it goes. So
Wow.
this is one thing Thaao and I connected on immediately, was because we both have the like mind of you are what you eat, you are what you put in your body. All these pharmaceutical things that they create are created from an original plant. They
Right.
take a property of one of those plants and then they alter it and chemically use it and make it different, and then they can make money off it. But
Yes.
the plant is still there. The plant is pure.
Right.
And if God makes it to grow out of the ground, I believe in the plant before
Well, that's
I
why
believe.
animals would they would follow, Indians would follow animals to see what they ate.
Mhm, mhm.
That's how they started to learn, understand medicine, by what an animal did to help it clean itself. Like the cat will go and have grass to have the moth, the hairball come up. It's understanding, because they do it intuitively. No one gave them a pill, so they look to heal. The same with horses. The same, they love to have, because of the green has got all the chlorophyll in it.
It's all the most important.
I mean, it's our blood.
That's why we need the sun. We need the sun to
Right.
grow the green, to the photosynthesis and create all of this lushness. We have to have it.
I take I want to say probably about 20 supplements a day in the holistic. And, I used to be on cholesterol medicine, and because the side effects, I got off of it, found a holistic one to get on that helps with it. So my cholesterol last time, it was great. And my doctor said, "What are you doing differently?" I said, "Nothing. I'm taking holistic stuff." And, a lot of times there are some doctors that, are for it. There are some doctors that are not very, I guess I'll use the word educated on it and everything. And don't know a lot about it, but I completely believe in it because I know it's working for me.
Yeah.
The one time I did 6 liver and kidney cleanses, and it's amazing the kind of stones that are in our body.
Ooh, yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of them, right? And I see people I hear people say to me, even a sister of mine, she says, "Oh, I've got this stone. It's so painful." I said, "Well, why don't you clean it out?" "Well, what do you mean clean it out?" So when I told the doctor what I did, he says, "Oh, come on, what did you do?" So when I told him, the grapefruit juice, the olive oil, the herbs that prepare the liver and the kidneys over the couple of weeks, and then, the next day you sit there, and I took Epsom salts, and it was just amazing what crap we have in our bodies because of the food.
Right.
And the way it's being treated. There's just, because, you go to Whole Foods, for instance, and I said, "Well, is this, what do you call them? The ones who do the corn and all the rest of the companies that alter the food, alter the..."
Oh, genetically modified.
Yeah, genetically modified. And
Right.
he said, I don't know. And I said, "What do you mean you don't know?" So I looked to see if it says anything, and then you find out that if an apple has a 4 to it, and its number, genetically modified, you have to find the 9.
You have to find a 9. Exactly.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, have a look at what it is you're buying.
The 9 is organic.
Organic.
Okay.
4 is modified.
This is on the little sticker, on the sticker, on the sticker on that. Okay.
That's what they're putting on, but people are not educated to know those things.
I didn't know that.
So when I go, firstly, I always go to what my psych is telling me to go to, pick it up, and I love to smell things. It tells me the aroma, tells me something. But then I look now at the numbers, and I cannot believe how many things, especially corn, has 4. Lemons, even lemons, I just cannot believe that
Mm-hmm.
that what we're eating, it's all big money.
Well, imagine that they've created a lemon without seeds. What is that? Oh, that's genetically modified.
Wow.
Oh, it's so much easier to not get the seed in your. Well, how difficult is it to pick a seed out of something?
Right.
I mean, I know everybody wants convenience and
Sure.
everything, but there are certain things that I'm not willing to. I mean, I make all my own salad dressings. I rarely use anything from a salad dressing jar unless it's something I really, really want briefly. And of course, everything in moderation. It's not going to kill you just to have it once
Sure.
in a while. But you know, I'm pretty careful with that stuff.
Information is power.
Yes.
It is. I had 3 miniature schnauzers. I lost 2 of my babies last year. They were my kids. I have one, and I took him in, and because he had too much protein in his urine, and so the doctor, the veterinarian, and they are good vets, but they're not. I don't know if they don't do holistic vet there. They said for us to find out where the protein is coming from, we can put them on medicine, it'll help, but to find out, really need to do what's it called, ultrasound. And I'm very proactive, and he's about to be 15, going on 5, thankfully. And I said, he's not acting like anything's wrong with them, but go ahead and do the ultrasound. So they found they said at first they thought it was a tumor in his stomach. And I was blown away. I was like, oh my God, I'm about to lose so quickly. And when I got them all at the same time in 2010, you're not thinking about that. You're not thinking about spreading it out, about losing them. You just don't. And so they did the test where they go down the throat, to get a piece of and thankfully it wasn't cancerous. So I contacted a holistic vet in Nashville. I'm in Memphis, so it's only 3 hours from here. And I said, I'll bring them up there. Said, you don't have to. They go, here's what you need to take: a Q-tip, swab his inside cheek on both sides, put it in a thing, and pull out, hairs so we can get his DNA, and make a list of every single medicine, every supplement, everything you feed him, everything, and send it to us. And we can do a DNA test on him and tell you what he's allergic to, what he's not, what he needs to be on. So now I said, I'm going to do it this way. He's on, I just got it in. I'm treating him holistically with the stuff that they said, this will help heal that inflammation that's inside of him. And I said, because if it works for us humans, obviously works for dogs as well. And so I said, that's what I'm going to do. And I said, because doctor, I don't want him to be on all these different medicines. And I was just very thankful it wasn't cancer.
Very good.
Very lucky. I know we've spent a ton of time talking about a bunch of other stuff, but one question I want to ask you, definitely going to have to have you guys come back, because I have so many different storylines I want to ask you about. So maybe sometime here in the next couple of months, you can come back on and do a part 2. But I do want to ask you one thing, is what do you guys remember most about your first scene together on Days of Our Lives back in, I guess it was the early 80s?
Well, I I remember, I'm not sure I remember my first scene with him, but I know that at the time my character was working for his father, Stefano.
Right.
And I was kind of undercover. So he was kind of he acted like he was the boss too, behind his desk.
Simple.
And I was living in the Horton house, and I was like a little cap sleeves and little bow ties at my neck, kind of clothes, and I was all, shy and all undercover because I was a killer.
Right.
Not really a killer, but I was
Sadly.
working for Stefano. But I remember my producer taking me aside, and Thaao alluded to this earlier. and saying to me that I had a story coming up to work with him. And I said, but why? Why? And she said, because we have this story that we figured we can make it work. And I said, but he's difficult. I'm a nice girl. I just don't know how I'm going to work with him. And
She found out.
I found out that he was difficult. And then I found out that I think it was literally, getting into holistic stuff, and we were literally talking about things. And then once we really got our stories going with John and Arlene together, the Calliope, Eugene, Anna, and Tony, and it just took off. It really, really, really went well. And he became a good friend and a husband. I wrote him a card the other day. His birthday's coming up in a month.
Yes.
And
when's your birthday? What day?
15th of December. And I wrote him a card saying, who knew we'd get married over and over and over again and end up best friends? And who knew?
What's interesting about was when I first saw her, you remember the musical Carousel?
Yes.
The hair and everything. She was very simple, pretty, but simple. And then she had to become the seductress. And suddenly, out of nowhere, this hair, this body, and suddenly appeared. And it was like, oh my God, what a change, She played the mousy thing, and then suddenly she was ready for the world. And she seduced me. She drugged me, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, and got you married in Vegas, right? Wasn't that right?
Married in Vegas.
Yeah.
And so I used to play tricks on her, just to make things interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I knew a love scene was coming up, I'd have a can of sardines for lunch.
That pretty.
So, something like that. Or there was a few things I would do to you. I can't remember.
Or you just did it.
Oh, that's right. This. You see how I have this?
Yeah.
Well, I had a Greek chain.
A long, beautiful gold chain.
Yeah. This was given to me, actually, by a gal called Kat, who is a lovely human being. Anyway, so I would come in the scene doing this, and that draws attention to me because I'm playing, because I thought of myself as a Greek and, European, and that's what men do. And they sit there and they've got their worry beads and do whatever. And she used to get pissed off because that's how I got her to react. I would do this in the scene, and she would. So that's how you got stage.
I would grab it, and he had no lines, and I just keep talking, and I would stop him, and it literally made for a tug of war, which is literally an old acting exercise, is a tug of war stuff.
Yeah.
But
throw the ball, give it back to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So we never had any problems through all the whole years, yes, I annoyed her a few times. Like I would come into makeup and they would take too long, and I went to run lines, and you have to wait and be patient. And
like yesterday,
we're going to get through the lines. So I ended up having to do the lines while she was doing her hair. And I remember one time I came in and I said to an actress that I was working with, oh my God, if you spend enough time on your script as you do on your hair, we'd have better performances. Stormed out. She didn't talk to me.
Well, yeah.
Well, how long does it take to? It's just forever. I mean, we are just, we shave, comb our hair, and get our makeup on, and we're ready.
And this is what I said to him yesterday. You're a peacock. I'm a peahen. I need adornment. You have the big fancy tail, and I'm the little brown hen that needs to put on stuff.
We're prettier.
Because you need to attract us.
Yes.
That's the nature's way of making you.
Yeah. Seductive.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, the long story short is we were blessed to have each other, to work
Yes.
with each other after all these years.
Aren't we lucky we had days to give us a friendship? together?
Yes,
Yes,
yeah,
too.
yeah. And
very
so,
so.
Happened for a reason, synchronicity.
Yes.
yeah, I mean,
exactly.
that's why Eugene and Calliope got along so well. You know, they were mad, you know, together. I mean,
So
I
great.
mean,
Yes.
remember they went to see Alien and how John Delancey, they took a break because they said, oh, they're not going to get to us until a certain hour. And so John and Eileen went to see Alien, and they were so engrossed. And she's looking at the clock. She says, we better get going because we're going to be there. But John just took his time. And so they had to come back to see part 2 another day. And who was it?
But she had gone out to the car and he didn't come out. So she had to go back into the theater. And right as the alien was coming down to eat him, a guy on screen, she put her hand on his shoulder and said, John, we have to go. But it wasn't John. It was some poor other guy in the theater. And the alien was eating the guy and he got a hand on his shoulder, stood up screaming, and ran out of the theater. That was John and Arlene back in the day. But they were so much fun.
They were a lot of fun. They were great stories those days. You know, there was an element of humor. All of us had our own interpretation of what was funny, and it all worked together, you know. They don't have enough humor anymore, do you know?
Oh.
They just don't. Yeah.
Well, this has been very fun, and we talked about a lot of stuff, but I have so many storylines that I want to talk about that to reminisce on. And like I said, I'd love for you to come back on part 2. We could maybe come back on after the new year.
Yeah.
After the holidays are over with.
After the holidays.
We'll have more stories by that time. I'd have gone to Australia and back.
I will have gone to Washington twice and back.
Yeah.
So that'll be great. And I once again appreciate both of you coming on today. This has been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to go reminisce about a lot of it was my childhood because I was an 80s kid. And, you know, in the 80s and 90s were so much fun watching, you know, the show. So love to have you back on for part 2. And I appreciate your time again today.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
To meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Leann. Good to see you again, Thaao. I'll talk to y'all soon.